Hello again, everyone. You're joining us for another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. My name is Jeff Mix. I'm head of content and research. My guest today is Seth Davies of Competitive Solutions. Seth actually hosts a podcast that I think our audience would be interested in hearing more about, and I'm so pleased we got some time to talk about his project. Seth, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jeff. It's been a great journey with you and Executive Platforms the last 10 years, and I appreciate you having me.
I should actually say I have known Seth my entire time at Executive Platforms, and also even earlier in my career. I think they're a great organization, and when I heard they had a podcast, I said, I have a podcast. Let's see if our audiences would enjoy overlapping content. So again, I'm really excited to talk about this. Why don't you walk us through what your show is and what it's about?
Yeah, so our show's called The Pulse of High Performance, and what we do is we have leaders from manufacturing organizations come and talk about their journey, their career, and talk about lessons learned as a leader, and talk about kind of some do-overs. And we really frame it as looking at what are the things that they did well during their career, what are things they may do differently, and how do they approach, now in the workforce, there are 4 different generations, right? So when you've got folks that have been there 30 years, you need to lead them differently than folks that are entering the workforce. So it's really a introspective look at their career and lessons learned.
And the intended audience would be other manufacturing executives. So the story is very much told like, this is my experience, maybe some of this will apply to you.
Yeah, it is geared toward manufacturing. I think anybody in a leadership role, whether in your nonprofit, we've had folks from school systems as interviewees on there. And it's really just, sharing of best practices, case studies of what have we learned, how do we approach things in learning from each other.
How are you identifying potential people to feature, stories that are worth sharing? What is your process for gathering episodes?
We've got, at Competitive Solutions, we've been in business for almost 35 years. So we've got a long list of clients that we mine, that we go to and ask them to be guests on our podcast. But also when we come to events like this, Executive Platforms, the North American Manufacturing Excellence Summit, come here and we meet people and we create those relationships and really have those conversations. And we say, that'd be a great guest to have. They got a great story. Their journey through their career, their manufacturing career, has been something that our audience needs to hear.
Yeah. How long has your show been running now?
So we started last year, so we're on about episode number 24. We like to do it twice a month, have a podcast, and then we put it out on our social media channels, LinkedIn, and then obviously we get some snippets and use those for put on LinkedIn and really to attract our audience and share best practices around that.
I can appreciate a podcast is a conversation that can go a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
Is there sort of a format? Like, do you do sort of leadership profile at the top and a case study at the bottom? Or how do you try to build an episode?
A podcast really, Jeff, it's a free-flowing conversation, right? And you just never know where you're going to go with that. Obviously, we have a list of questions we start out with, kind of talk about your organization, talk about your current role. And then the last question is about, what are lessons learned, right? When was a pivotal moment in your career? When did you know that what you're currently doing is the path that you wanted to continue on with that? So we'll have those conversations, but many times when you're doing a podcast or interview, sometimes the questions you have aren't relevant, and so you throw them out the door and you just kind of go with it.
Sure. As you say, it's a back and forth.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about your organization, because I think you guys are uniquely positioned to have a show like this and conversations like this. I think there are a lot of great organizations out there that are selling a tool or a process, but I think what you actually sell is communication. You are collaborators with manufacturers. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, so Competitive Solutions, so what we focus on is working with organizations to create good, right? Create what we call a high-functioning organization around metrics. And so teams, leaders can say, are we winning or are we losing, right? And we layer that in with accountability and engagement, because many times organizations will have all this data, they'll measure, but they don't do anything with it. So really, how do you take the data, the information that you get, and how do you take action upon that? And then we layer into that, working with the leadership, what is good communication, right? I think many folks today review email as a valid form of communication. Really, that's one way. Our focus is on two-way communication, face-to-face. Let's talk about the business. Let's talk about what do we need to do differently? What are lessons learned? How did we do yesterday? And then the final thing we've been working with leaders in organizations is, what are the ideal behaviors? What are the ideal behaviors that are going to give us the ideal results? And so we have a proven process of taking a leadership team through designing and deploying their playbook, their handbook of how they're going to work together with that.
And again, I think that's such a great foundation to then have a podcast that is manufacturing leaders sharing their success stories and also some of their lessons learned that maybe you wouldn't frame as a success story, but like this is what we took away from it.
Yeah. It's about how can we move the business forward, right? And listen, every organization is different, right? They all have their challenges, but at the end of the day, they all struggle with how do we have better communication? How do we truly make accountability visible and personal and real? How do we drive the business forward? How do we focus on what we have in common, not what we have in conflict? And that's what we bring to an organization is a proven process to help them do that.
And does your podcast sort of have a plan for the future? Is there somewhere you want to get with it?
What we really want to do is highlight executives in manufacturing, leaders in manufacturing that have great stories to share and tell. And whether they're at the beginning of their career, the middle of their career, or kind of the end of their career, right? Let's share best practices. What can we impart? What's wisdom they can share with the other leaders to help them on their journey, right? We're all going to go down the same road with our career. How can we all get to where we want to be with that?
For people who are listening to this and say, it sounds good, is there a particular episode maybe they should start with to get a sense of what it's all about?
Yeah, there's two episodes, I think, Jeff. One recent episode was Ed Dubois, who's Senior Vice President at Zoetis. And Ed has been in manufacturing for over 30 plus years, and he has a great story to tell about that. And then the other one I'd like to highlight is Dawn Scott, who's the president of Eurocara. She is a woman that has been in manufacturing for 30 years and has risen to leadership role in her organization. And she's got some great stories to tell as well. So both of those can be found on our website, csipbell.com, also on our Competitive Solutions LinkedIn page, and that's a great place to start to get some good information and learn more about our podcast.
Well, I encourage everyone to check out The Pulse of High Performance. As someone who hosts a business podcast, it's such a pleasure to find one of our partners putting on something that has great content, great stories told by people who really do the work. I know it's available in both video and audio formats wherever podcasts are found, but of course there is their website and LinkedIn. Seth, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
Jeff, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as well.
You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint Podcast Series. I've been Jeff Mix. Let's do it again soon.